Hello, everyone, and welcome to day four of our Purposeful People book launch webinar series. And tonight we've got five amazing people who are going to be our finale team to inspire you. I'm sure that if you've been watching the past 3 nights, you have seen the amazing value of everybody coming together, but the energy, wow, it just goes to show the power of purpose, and that's what this book's about. Okay. So we're just going to get right into it today. I'm going to give Chris the floor for about half a minute to share his why behind the book, because it's important that we share that every single day, just in case people only get to see one day. So, Chris, can I invite you just to unmute for a second, just to share the why behind Purposeful People?
Sure. Thanks, Karen, and thanks for hosting us as ever. The book essentially was designed as a bit of an antidote to what was happening and has been happening over the last 18 months to a year. I think that lots of people have struggled with what's been happening, and let's be honest, a lot of the news from March last year onwards really has been pretty downbeat, pretty depressing and pretty difficult. And I thought, can I find a way to lift people up a bit, lift their spirits, give them something to hang on to and something to cling to that could motivate them and help them get through their day. So I deliberately went and got in touch with 19 of the most inspirational, motivational people that I know. Clearly, and now that all the others are having to be muted because they're just attendees, I can say that the four other people on this call tonight are the most inspirational and motivational of all the 19 that are in the book. I just thought that it would be a great way to bring together all of those people to share some of their views, some of their thoughts, some of their wisdom, and get that out there to try and lift people's spirits. And I know we're going to talk about this later on at the end of the webinar, raise money for four really fantastic and important charities along the way, so that we're giving all the time and nothing actually comes to us. That was the why behind the book.
Well, it's very powerful, and you know, every single you know amazing humans, Chris. I'm just going to say that because we have got to know them over the past 3 days, and we're going to get to know Tim and Bob and Sarah and Jan today, and it's just phenomenal, the response that we've had to Purposeful People, like selling out on day one on Amazon.co.uk, and then we got a best-selling we became best-selling authors today. Like, it's just phenomenal, the journey, really high vibe, high energy, but also the feedback that you've been getting for this book is just amazing. And it's only the start of the journey. This book, I know, is going to go far and wide, so everyone should be very proud, and I'm glad that you all showed up and said yes to Chris. So we're just going to go and get stuck in. So thank you so much, Chris, as always, for joining me to share that insight as well. I'm going to invite Jan to come and chat with me. Jan, can you unmute and come and chat?
Yeah. Hi, Karen.
There you go. How you going, Jan?
Good.
That's good. I'm just going to read a little of your bio here, and then we'll get stuck into some questions. So Jan Rutherford entered the US Army at age 17, weighing 114 pounds, and spent 6 years in the US Army Special Forces as a Green Beret medic and A-team executive officer, as well as 3 years as a military intelligence officer. Jan has over 25 years of business experience and has held executive roles in business development, marketing, sales, training, product management, and as a CEO. He is the founder of Self-Reliant Leadership, leads Crucible expeditions and executives and transitioning military veterans, and is the author of The Littlest Green Beret on Self-Reliant Leadership. Welcome, Jan. Amazing. And your chapter is called 5 Traits of an... I can't even read my own writing. It's my 1 a.m. 5 Traits of an Indomitable Team, Lessons from Executive Expeditions.
Right. Yep.
Oh, amazing, Jan. Before we talk about your chapter, can we talk about your purpose, please?
Well, I've been really fortunate to do what I do for the last 10 years, which is helping leaders pursue their own heroic aspirations and grow their organizations by developing their people. But as I reflect on my whole life, I mean, that's really what I've been doing, since I was a teenager as a Green Beret. The reality of that unit is that they're force multipliers. They're set out to basically develop others and help them achieve things. So what I'm doing now, I've actually been doing my whole life, and I feel very fortunate, because we all have been around leaders that are really effective and leaders that aren't so effective. We've all been on teams that are great, like this one, and we've been on teams that weren't so great. So that's what I get to do.
So you've been living your purpose for a long time, John. Hey, what a privilege, hey?
Yep, yep.
It's
It
really,
is a lot to be grateful for.
yeah. And you can see that with your online presence, it just shines through, and you just it's just really amazing and high vibe. Let's talk about your chapter here. I took down a
Yep.
few notes. I really love how you talk about grit, and how you were cold and wet and tired and or hungry, or there was those days when you were all of them. So that's really, there's a lot of resilience in there. Can you just chat on that and your 5 traits as well?
Yeah. So I lead these expeditions with executives and military veterans, and it's to try to accelerate in 4 or 5 days what might take 6 months to a year to do, not in an intense environment. And one of the things about it is, when you're out in the wilderness, you are a little bit cold, wet, tired, and hungry at times. And it can bring out the best in people, and it can bring out the crankiness. And what I've observed on about 20 expeditions and a lifetime of being in the wilderness and around phenomenal leaders is 5 attributes that really create a high performing team. And to cover those very quickly, one of those is they're adventurous, they're willing to be gritty and take some risks and put themselves out there. They're selfless, there's a sense of duty to each other, to themselves, to be squared away. They're driven, beyond their own needs to basically be heroic and to serve others. There's a dynamism that exists where people slow down to speed up, that they figure out different ways to focus, and different people take charge at different times. And lastly, and most importantly, the environment is safe. They're protective of each other, kind of like a herd of elk sitting around. They're all facing out because they have each other's back. And that's what we all hope for when we join a team, is that it's safe. So those 5 attributes are easy to articulate, but hard to achieve. And they take time, and they take a process, and there's never stasis. Things are always changing because you're dealing with humans.
Absolutely. And there's trust there as well, isn't it? I
Absolutely.
do, yeah, I do love the way that you talked about slowing down to speed up, because I seen that was mentioned, I think, twice yesterday, by Jamie and by was it, yeah, Dom as well, about going so fast, and then somebody saying to them, you got to slow down, and then for them to slow down, and then they found their purpose, which I thought was amazing. It's a really good learning thing. There's Jamie speaking now, slowing down to speed up. And you identify that as a really, amazing quality whenever you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big takeaway from the expeditions always is, I've got to slow down to speed up. And it's interesting because, it's a paradox. Business and the business world is all about productivity and efficiency, yet that efficiency and productivity is achieved through relationships, which take time and patience and caring. And so that's the balance that all teams, all leaders need to really strive for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very, very powerful valid points. Jan, can I ask you, what are your top tips for living a purposeful life?
Well, the thing I'll leave you with is when I was a young lieutenant, I heard a fighter pilot get up in front of us and tell a whole bunch of war stories. And he said, but you know what? If you remember one thing, remember this. All great men have kept journals. And I thought at the time, I wanted to be a great man. And so I started keeping a journal. And I think that's the best way that we can take personal responsibility for our own growth. And so I advocate for people to just write 4 things down in their journal to get started. It doesn't have to be, you know, an emotional diary. It can be, hey, what did I learn today? How could I rate the day? What am I grateful for? What's the one priority for tomorrow? And over time, those will demonstrate patterns and trends and help us reflect on things that we can do differently to be more effective. So that's what I'll leave the audience with.
You have just made my heart sing with that. I adore all of that, with the gratitude, the journaling is just so powerful, and the reflection. You're able to look back and see how far you've come over time. Amazing, and an amazing tip. Thank you so much, Jan. It's so lovely to get to know you more.
Oh, thanks, Karen. Thanks for all the work that you and Chris did to pull all this together.
Oh, it's our joy. It's an absolute privilege to work with all of you guys, really and truly. Thank you so much, Jan.
Thank you, Karen.
Take care. Bye. I'd like to invite Tim down. Oh, sorry, Jan, can I just, I've got a question here before you go. Is that okay, from Dagmar?
Oh, sure.
How did this purpose journaling help leaders of teams to enable better collaboration?
Well, I think what they're able to do is we've got to look in the mirror. We have to role model so many of these things. And so much of leadership and interpersonal skills is really self-awareness. It's not just knowing, hey, this is the effect I can have on, you know, this is how I am, but this is the effect it's having on others, and then having the emotional control to regulate that emotional response. And I think that's all the components of it. And again, I think the journaling is just a reflection on, well, you know, if the day was crappy, was it because I had a bad interaction with somebody? And what was it that I could have done differently to make that interaction better? It's really that self-reflection. And of course, you can't go it alone. At some point, you've got to ask others for help and insights. But that journaling, I think, is a great first step.
Yeah, absolutely. As a writer myself, I use it as a brain dump. You know, it gets it out of here, makes it something tangible you can work with. It's written on the paper.
Yeah.
Chris has just said here, I have heard a lot about journaling, Jan, but never thought about it as a way to identify trends. That's really insightful and a great tip. See?
Yeah.
Get writing, everyone. Thank you, Jan. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Tim, can I invite you to unmute and come and join me, please? Thank you.
Sure.
Tim Wiggum grew up in Southern Africa, and has dual British and South African citizenship. He served in the British Commandos for 8 years between 1992 and 2000. After completing his MBA in Cape Town in 2001, Tim specialised in the facilitation of executive leadership breakaways across a range of industries to build strong cohesion, as well as a clear strategy, mission, vision, and authentic company values. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Karen. It's great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here. And your chapter is called Mastering Mood Set to Sustain Excellence in a Changing World. It's all about mood set. I really enjoyed learning about it. But before we talk about it, can you share with us what's your purpose, Tim?
Yeah, Karen, my purpose is to inspire myself and others, and to guide and serve leaders and teams to unlock true capability and to be all we can be. And I delved into my purpose a couple of years ago. So not only do the purposes of every other author in this book resonate, but I was able to relate to the Q&As that you've had with many. And I just wanted to say that, and this has been mentioned by many of the authors, that to find my purpose, I kind of look back at the golden thread that runs through my life. And I think that a lot of others have said that. And I kind of looked at when I felt in flow, and when I felt inspired, and when I received strong positive feedback. And I used that to try and help me establish the purpose that I just gave you. I think you're on mute, Karen. I can't hear you.
There we go.
Go ahead.
And that is it. It's about identifying your purpose, that it is a journey, or it is a journey for everyone. I think a lot of the contributors have really valued the journey, and to get to where they are with purpose. And so I'm talking about, let's talk about your chapter about mood set. One of the things that really stood out for me was the trust element. And there's a diagram there, and I'd love for you to speak about that. But if you can speak about the chapter as a whole.
Yeah, sure, Karen. So the chapter as a whole, I decided to focus on mood set because I feel that it is much less understood than mindset, which we're all familiar with. I won't pretend that I or everyone necessarily has mindset spot on, but I think there's been a lot of literature and a lot of discussion about the importance of mental toughness, mental skills, and mindset. People are also aware of methodology and methodologies. So I recently put together a 3M model, which was mindset, methodology, or method, and mood. Now, for me, mood is the least understood, as I say, and I felt that if we call it mood set, which is similar to mindset, we might perhaps pique people's interest. And when Chris engaged with me about contributing to this anthology, I thought this is an opportunity to perhaps provide some handholds for people regarding what mood set looks like, how one can contribute to mood set, why it's important, and just to create a little bit more awareness about this concept of mood set. An example that I often give is I've been supporting campaign teams in the upstream oil and gas industry for the last 15 years. So year after year, I would helicopter onto a different oil rig somewhere in the world, but let's just say the North Sea. And in many cases, for the same operator, there might be a number of rigs that were operating, doing various different work scopes. And I often found it incredible that you could land on one rig for that same operator, and you could sense the mood immediately, whether morale was positive, what motivation was like, how well the team was working together, what the leadership was like. And you could perhaps even on the same day helicopter onto another rig working for the same operator, as I say, and almost immediately you barely got off the chopper and you barely had your induction in the heli lounge, and you get onto the rig and you start sensing that there's an entirely different mood. Motivation is down, morale is down, people aren't communicating well. People are walking on eggshells around certain leaders. And that's one example of what I'm talking about with mood set. Leaders and teams can influence the performance climate or mood set, as I'm calling it, by understanding certain belonging cues, certain behaviors, certain language that can be used deliberately on purpose in order to influence the mood set in a positive direction. So mindset, method, mood set. In the chapter, I talk about some of the cues for mood set, and people often ask me, what are the indicators for a positive performance culture or a positive performance climate? And simple things like punctuality, congruency, doing what you say you will do. These are such simple things, but if you're in a group, a team, an organization, even for a short space of time, you can quite quickly get a sense of whether things happen on time as advertised, whether people do what they say they will do. And I kind of expand further on things like courtesy and indeed things like trust, Karen, which you've already touched on. So in terms of trust, I'm drawn to authors like Matthew Syed, Malcolm Gladwell, and indeed Simon Sinek, whose book I see we've been jostling with on Amazon, which is interesting. So Simon Sinek has done research with a number of high-performing, high-purpose organizations including the Navy SEALs, and I can relate to this having served some time in the Royal Marines in the UK. Trust is absolutely critical because trust provides an insight into character, and character is more important than competence and talent. Because if you put the right people on the bus and provided you're heading in the right direction, you can help people with competence and aptitude. But attitude and character and trust is an absolute foundation for any high purpose organization. And so Simon Sinek and others, they really resonate with me when we're talking about the importance of trust. And what's interesting is that with my research, I've always said, how does that resonate with my experience? So I can read about this, I can research about high performance organizations with a positive mood set, but what does my intuition tell me? And indeed, listening to other authors over the last several days, it's been really interesting to hear their insights and perspectives on intuition. So I balance the research with my experience and my intuition and say, does that make sense to me? And that's what I've tried to include in this chapter for the benefit of the reader. Having been a performance coach for the last 20 plus years, but specifically in upstream oil and gas for the last 10 to 15, what have I experienced and how does that balance with what I read about from the likes of Simon Sinek? So I've tried to kind of compile, compare, and include that in the chapter for everyone's benefit.
That's a book all in itself, Tim. You say you've done it so well to compile it into a chapter, and everyone's just nodding their heads here. You could just see it in the comments. Jamie says, "First class, Tim. Great summary. Trust is key." And Chris says, "That's brilliant, Tim. We often sense a different feel to a room or a team, but your mood set definition captures it perfectly." And it is about you do. Whenever you walk into a room or into an office or into an area, if you sense it, it just automatically affects how you respond, I suppose, to that. But one of the things that strikes me as well is personality. You can't teach that. You can teach things, but you can't teach personality. So it's definitely a valuable trait. Jan has shared here. Oh yeah, that's fine, Jan. And Jan has to run for a client commitment, but he wished he could stay more. Please let me know. Yeah, there will be a recording and I will send it to you. And thank you so much, Jan. Good to see you. Jamie says, "Steal with pride, mood set." There you go. Hey, you agree with all of that, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. Very kind words from some outstanding co-authors there, and I really appreciate that. And every day is a school day, learning all the time. Whatever we can share with each other about what has helped a positive mood set where you have worked, I think is important because we can all learn from this. And it's very interesting. There are lots of articles now about the new hybrid work environment that we are facing, where the old traditional will overlay the new virtual, and we'll try and draw the best examples and experiences from the two as we go into a hybrid work environment going forward. I think it's going to be critical that we share what works, what doesn't, how do we maintain morale and motivation with our teams going forward.
Absolutely. One thing before you go, Tim, can you share with us your top tip for living a purposeful life?
Yeah, I'd actually taken some time to make some notes on this because I don't want to be unclear about what I feel is important for living a purposeful life. So the first point I'd made, Karen, was you don't need permission from anyone else to be true to your purpose and to strive in service of that purpose. I'm really a strong advocate of that. Don't wait for other people's permission. Just because they don't believe that you can do what you want to do doesn't mean that you can't go out and do what you want to do. So don't wait for permission. You don't need permission. If you feel it inside and it lights a fire inside, as many of the other authors have mentioned, then strive for that purpose. Also, I think you need to write it down and share it. I'm a great advocate of that. Share your goals as well so that you can invite accountability partnership and support from significant people in your life. And then make progress on your purpose every day. Ask powerful questions, including ask yourself, if what you're doing right now is moving the needle towards your purpose or away from your purpose. And if it's moving it away, then don't do it. Focus on what moves you towards your purpose.
There we go. Hope everyone was taking notes there, because that is a powerful contribution. Thank you so much, Tim. I really enjoyed that. Everyone's
Pleasure,
saying I
Karen.
love that.
Thank you.
Bang on. You're just, it's absolutely there. Hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you.
I would like to invite Chris to come and join me.
Hi, Karen. Yes, I was loving the fact that you could see Sarah, Bob, and I all scribbling notes furiously whilst Tim was talking there.
The wonderful thing is of it recording is that we can then go back and watch it again. You can go reverse. Oh,
Absolutely.
isn't it wonderful? So, Chris, let's get to know you better. Everyone, you know, has a lot of people on the call already know you, but for those people who don't, I'll just share a little bit of your bio. Chris is the managing director of Quirk Solutions, a consultancy specializing in human factors behind change, transformation, and risk. At his core, Chris has a deep sense of service and a determination to help whoever he can, however he can, and whenever he can. Some of this comes from his previous career of 18 years in the military. Much of it, though, is just who he is. He values family, friends, fun, and reflection, though time for reflection is often in short supply. You are such a giver, aren't you, Chris? You are. You just love to serve. And your chapter is called A Safe Space to Talk, the importance of diverse thinking. And it's a very important chapter. But before we talk about it, can you share with us your purpose?
Yes, sure. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. It's very kind. I'm not particularly good at receiving compliments, so you'll have to forgive me for that. But essentially, my purpose is to make people feel safe and protected. That's how I operate. That's how I've operated for pretty much all of my life. So I think whereas some people were talking yesterday and the day before on these webinars about it's taken them time to find their purpose, I think a bit like Jan, I've always been living my purpose. I just never realized it. And it's almost like all the parts of the equation were there, but I couldn't actually put the maths together. I know my mum and dad are listening to this webinar. Hello, Mum. Hello, Dad. And you know, they will tell you as a 8-9-year-old, I used to love pretending to be a butler for my brother and sister, older sister and younger brother. And I would go up to them with a little menu and ask them what they would like, and I would go and cook for them whatever they wanted, which mostly involved a selection of omelettes, and that was really it that was on the menu. But it's always been there really then through my military career and on into where I am now. You know, as a consultant, as a business consultant, essentially the way in which I like to operate is to be in the background, to be almost invisible, so that the team are doing the work, they're having the success, they're celebrating, and they don't even realize that I've been part of the whole thing. And it's interesting, you know, when I start to reflect back on my military career, you know, which sounds odd, I know, because you know you're a military officer, so you are therefore by default a leader. But when I look at the times at which I was most successful, or the best version of me, it was actually probably when I was somebody's deputy, or I was serving in a supporting role within a headquarters, because I felt then that I, you know, was driven to help somebody else look good, to achieve what they wanted to achieve. And that's what gives me a kick, not achieving myself. And the ironic thing really about being a consultant now is that it was never really in the plan. When I was coming to leave the Royal Marines, I was considering it. I hadn't made my mind up about it. After 18 years of service, I was still pretty happy. But somebody contacted me and got in touch with me that I knew fairly well, and said that they'd recently invested in a new business, a startup business, along with 5 others, and they felt that it was a really great opportunity and they'd like me to be involved. because they wanted somebody who could do strategy and then deliver that strategy. And they knew that that's what I did. So I was invited to help put together the strategy for this new business. Hugely exciting. I was obviously massively flattered because I'd just been in the military for ages. So all of a sudden, here's this bunch of business people asking me to come and help them. And the long and the short of it was that 3 days before I was due to actually leave the Royal Marines and join this new business venture, one of the partners ran off with the whole thing. And it was obviously a bit of a disaster for the other 4 because they'd lost a huge amount of money that they'd invested, but they all also still had plenty of money and businesses and investments elsewhere. I was 3 days out from being redundant from the Royal Marines. I had to pay a mortgage at the end of the month. I was devastated because I was trying to think, what on earth am I going to do now? Because I haven't got time to go and try and find a new job. And to Tim's point, for me, the biggest bruise, if you like, that I still carry today, if I'm honest, a little bit, and back to Dom's talks about, you know, makers and takers, was this trust piece, and the breach of trust, because I'd spent 18 years trusting people around me with my life, and to suddenly have somebody just dump you with 3 days to go was pretty awful. So I decided about the only thing I could do was to go out and start to, if one business wants to hear what I've got to say and help them with their strategy, maybe others do. So I just decided to start pitching myself essentially as somebody that could go out and help other businesses. And 10 years later, we are where we are. But yeah, my approach, my purpose has always been to look after people, to protect people, to care for people. And you will get no stronger reaction from anybody other than me if I see somebody struggling or not having a great time.
Do you see all the love in the comments? You know?
I haven't seen any of them yet. No, sorry, I've just been talking.
It's amazing, and like that story is like so, and I think you got a lucky break there with that, but you turned that negative around into a positive, and I think that just really shows the real strength in character that you have, and maybe if that hadn't have come along, you may not be where you are today, but the main man incoming, Jamie says, and Sarah says, legend and an absolute gentleman. Jamie says, bloody great job, Chris, and gentleman indeed. Tim says, I've known Chris for 25 years. He has always been humble and hugely capable in equal measure. True servant leadership. And Jamie saying beautiful, and Philip says, they're lost, Chris, and very much the world's gain. There you go, hey?
Getting a bit choked up.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to receive the compliments because they're coming, and you're going to have to embrace them, because even knowing you through this project, I just say that, and you are one of the most humble leaders I know, and it's because you want to bring out the best in others. It's amazing. Kate says, Chris is always about picking other people up, even when going through tough times himself. There you go. And Dominic says, I was a little misty-eyed too there. There you go. So, okay, before we get to, before the tears start to well, let's get into this chapter of yours and let's speak about it. And one of the fascinating things, there was a bit of a serendipity there, is I was rereading your chapter today, but at the beginning you were talking about September 2008, how you're, and exactly September 2008, I was setting off out here into Australia. Isn't it funny? The exact same time you were doing that, I was embarking on a different sort of adventure. It's amazing. But we'd love to hear more about your chapter, Chris.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's essentially, it's still, I guess, linked to my purpose. If I want people to be protected, then you want them to be safe. And I feel that I can't really do my job. I can't help organizations or leaders improve unless everybody involved, leaders, but also the people that work with them and alongside them, their peers, or the people that are much lower in the organization, feel safe. So for me, there's a huge importance in creating a psychological safe space within any environment, whether it be at home in a social environment, in a sports team. You know, there's a reason why the All Blacks, I know Tim is a big proponent and was heavily involved with the Springboks for a long time with the South African national rugby team. You know, honesty and safety and psychological safety and sharing, and so you can talk candidly, is hugely important for any team. But it's also important, as you mentioned in the introduction, for diversity of thought. If we're going to be innovative, if we're going to be creative, if we're going to, get past some of the roadblocks that we face at times, whether they be something unexpected like the pandemic or something that was entirely predictable, then the only way we're going to do that is by having many minds looking at the problem and trying to come up with some solutions. And if we are too stringent in our leadership, and if we're too directive in how we go about things, then that creates a culture where people will tend to sit and wait to be told what to do, and then just do it and go no further. Whereas if you create an environment that's psychologically safe, then people are much more willing to put their hand up and say, hang on a minute, this doesn't seem right to me. The energy sector that the other three are, have been involved in a lot through their lifetimes is good for this, because I've been told lots of times, being in buildings of energy companies, to hold the handrail or put a lid on my cup, because it's just seen and it's just ingrained in that sort of thing to do. We must speak up. But for lots of other businesses and sectors, that's not the case at all. I've worked a lot within the NHS, and Sarah will share maybe some experiences from that as well, where actually people didn't necessarily always speak up. So for me, there is a real importance to that. And in the chapter, I start to talk about ways in which you can create that psychological safe space, because it's great to have the principle of it, but actually it's about how do you go about generating it. And it picks up on what Philip and Kate Marshall were mentioning in the other webinars as well, about, you only are able to do leadership by little things, as Kate was talking about, if you listen. Well, in order to listen, we've got to have people talking. So for me, it's about how do you get people talking? How do you encourage them to do that? The easiest way to do it for me, and I won't go into it in too much depth because I know you'll be giving me the eagle eye about giving too much away about the chapter, is around gaming and gamification, because all of us understand games. We understand that there must be rules, there must be boundaries, but then it's to be able to play and enjoy it. And so for me, you can often get a huge amount out of a team by creating games around it, around what you're discussing. And very quickly, very junior people in an organization are expressing really valuable thoughts to really quite senior people, because it's felt like the right environment and they've got the right mandate to be able to do it. So that's essentially what the chapter is all about.
You light up when you're talking about your work, Chris. you just say it, that you just are so passionate about it. I love it. Tim says, love the gaming metaphor. There you go. See?
Yes.
I'm going to use that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, can you share with us some of your top tips for living a purposeful life?
I think the best ones have already been gone, and I'm looking forward to hearing what Bob and Sarah can follow up with. But for me, I think my one top tip is don't look for your purpose too hard. Let it come to you. I think that I read so much. Tim's mentioned lots of great books. Same authors as I've been reading. So I felt I understood what purpose was. But I spent a lot of time then trying to work out what my purpose was. And it was almost like the more that I tried to find it, the further away it got. And it was just running away from my fingers each time. And actually, it was when I stopped really trying to find it and just kind of relaxed a little bit, that it came and found me. And it suddenly dawned on me that I'd been this person, that whether it was with my siblings and my parents and the way that I'd been brought up to care for other people by my mum and dad, to be a caring individual, whether it's been through my military service where I cared deeply for the people around me that I was responsible for, or whether it's now doing the consultancy and the care for people doing well and achieving what they're trying to do, it was literally like that massive light bulb moment and a switch. But it's like, I've always been doing this. And yet I've been spending maybe the last 3-4 years reading all these books, trying to work out what my purpose was. And actually all that ended up doing, ironically, was making me into a person that I'm not, because I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, because that's what I thought was a purposeful life. And in the end, when I kind of threw it all to one side and went, oh, to hell with this, I don't really get it, it's obviously not working for me, I'll just be me, I suddenly realized, hang on a minute, that is my purpose, that's who I am. So not trying too hard and just let it come rather than pushing for it, I think would be my tip.
It's so important to get that message, you know, not be somebody else's idea of a purpose, you know, to own it for yourself. Amazing. Dagmar says, great tip. And Philippa James says, really inspirational, Chris. I needed to hear this. Thank you. And huge kudos to your mum and dad. Done a great job. Thank you so much, Chris. I loved hearing that. So thank you. And I'd like to invite Sarah to come and unmute and join me.
Hi, Karen.
Hey, Sarah. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, I'm good. I'm good. So, Sarah Downs, with many years working as a nurse, mostly in trauma orthopedics, Sarah is no stranger to working under pressure. She is an excellent listener and has the ability to build trust in relationships and lead people in a fast-paced environment. While actively listening and using her empathy and compassion, her nursing experience now assists in her work with business clients to achieve their objectives by focusing on strategy and creating positive collaborations. Amazing, amazing, Sarah. Before we talk about your chapter, which is The Road to Finding Your Purpose, it's all about the journey, and everyone has touched on the journey, and you got the chapter to talk about, you know, the journey. But can we talk about your purpose and what that is, please, Sarah?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like my purpose is that I want to use what I've been blessed to learn and experience so far in my life, and what I'll go on to learn and experience, and also what I love, to help others each and every day. And by throwing in that part of what I love, it means that, you know, fulfilling my purpose is even that more enjoyable. So I think it's important to have the two together. So many of us can use what we've learned to help others, but also you need to throw in some of the stuff you love into that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Now, your chapter, Sarah, just had me. It just absolutely had me. I have to admit, it was just one of those ones that I really connected with. And, you know, for a few reasons, but I have to admit, I absolutely adored the story. And it's a very important story to share of your mother and that what you witnessed your mother do. Do you want to share a little bit that with people, just because it's just so inspirational?
Yeah. So Tim touched on, you know, the golden thread to finding, you know, your purpose. And, you know, a few years ago, I really went deep on this to try and figure out, you know, where did it all start? And the story I've shared in the book, and I won't give too much away, but I was 9 years old. And it's the very first time in my life that I remembered being truly inspired by something. And that was my mum. And an act, you know, that she had done in front of me, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. And that's why I was able to describe the scene so descriptively, because I really do remember every detail. And then going from there into, you know, through my teenage years and into early career, and just everything, you know, just this thread weaving through it all, piecing it all together, as Tim said before.
Yeah, and you've written it so well. You just bring us on the journey. You can actually see it. It's beautifully written, I have to admit. So the road to finding your purpose, Sarah, you know, how in your chapter you give so much away of the, you know, obviously the threads, yes, but also strategies and things like that. So do you want to share some about that?
Yes. So in my chapter and early conversations with Chris, when he first asked me to be part of this book, like others have said in previous webinars, there was a bit of that sounds great, but why me question. And I was racking my brains on, because we weren't told obviously what to write about per se at the start. And I remember Chris asking us all to come back to him with some ideas on what we could write about. And I think there's a lot of people in life that have been lucky enough to find their purpose. But something that I went through in the chapter, I explain, my purpose is helping people, and I was a nurse. And 5 years into working on that trauma unit, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And that meant that I had to leave my chosen career and the career that I really did feel aligned with my purpose. And I came out into, the big bad business world. I didn't have a clue what I would be good at, what I would enjoy, how I could make a difference. I just didn't understand where I would fit into this new world. And at the time, I really did feel like I'd lost my purpose, and that was quite hard. So a lot of the chapters around, can we lose purpose? And for me, I didn't lose my purpose. I just had to realize that, there's different roads to one destination. And I had to figure out that I had to turn right at the crossroads instead of hitting a brick wall. And that took time, it took support, and I was very lucky to have some amazing, business leaders around me who supported me, mentored me, coached me, to help me realize that I had all these transferable skills that from nursing that I just wasn't aware of at the time.
Wow, doesn't life just throw curveballs like that? So, and that's why it's so important, your story, and everyone's is talking about it here in the comments. Tim says Sarah has an amazing chapter. It's really touching. And your story is so powerful, and there's so much to learn through your story and your sharing. And it takes courage to share a story as well, especially one that is an amazing backstory, as Jamie says, a wonderful backstory. Chris says Sarah's chapter had me totally awestruck at her storytelling ability, gripping, emotional, honest, and with so many lessons in it to draw on. Really and truly, I have to admit, from a publishing point of view, you just know how to capture us and bring us in and make us feel the feels. It's just amazing. Jamie says, you are amazing, Sarah, a truly authentic human being from the short time we've known each other. See, there you go. You're having an impact. And, it's amazing. So, Sarah, with with purpose and all of that, can you share with us some tips that you have to living a purposeful life?
Sure. There's a few things. I think the first one is learning to truly listen. And I don't just mean to other people, I mean to yourself. Really listen and take note each and every day on how you feel, what do you get excited about, what are you scared of, what are you passionate about, what makes you, look forward to the next day, getting up in the morning. And I think a lot of us focus a lot on listening to others. And as a nurse, I learned that listening to others was very important to build rapport, build relationship, and give them the best care that they needed. But what was equally as important was to listen to myself, because I could go from, first thing in the morning, dreading going into that unit some days, sitting in my car, deep breaths, get into the unit, something amazing could happen, really high, and then I could lose somebody 2 hours later. And it was just this roller coaster of emotions. And if I didn't check in on myself, almost on an hourly basis when I was on shift, and I'm sure the guys that are ex-military will resonate with that, and anyone in leadership. If I didn't check in on myself and really listen and build out that self-awareness, I wouldn't have been able to help my patients in the same way. So I wouldn't have made as much of an impact. And I think in life, in leadership, it's so important to listen to yourself just as much as you listen to others. And I don't think that's really talked about enough. I think we talk about a lot of active listening externally instead of internally. And the other one would be really think about what success is to you, because the world is always, telling us what successful is. And that could be your bank balance, it could be the yacht, it could be the house. But again, I was a nurse working for the NHS. I definitely didn't do that for the money, but I felt successful. And I think it's really important that we all really define success for us. And I think Tim alluded to, don't listen to other people all the time. Make your own mind up and don't let someone else tell you whether or not you're successful in life. You can decide that for yourself. You can set goals to, go after. And along the way, check in and listen to yourself. That would be a couple that I'm not sure have been mentioned.
They haven't actually. So well done. Hey, Chris is impressed, I can see. Checking in with yourself and having your own definition of success are really absolutely key points to living a purposeful life. Sarah, amazing. Yeah, Chris says check in on yourself is a superb guide. Thank you, Sarah. And Tim Wiggum says be true to you. So key. See? Just hitting the mark, and there's just such a synergy between all of our contributors. And thank you so much, Sarah. Guys, you need to read Sarah's chapter. She done so well not to give it all away, but I promise you it is just gripping, and a book in itself. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks, Chris, again for the opportunity.
Amazing. Can I welcome Bob, our last contributor? I want to cry.
Hey, Karen. How you doing?
It's all over now. No pressure, Bob. No pressure whatsoever.
No.
Oh, you're ready for it. It's fine. So Bob is passionate about leadership, culture, values, and communication, and believes that these areas, the soft skills, are the really hard ones that make the difference. His background is in engineering, so he wants to know why things work and how they operate. He is an experienced chair and CEO of multiple organizations and has won several awards for entrepreneurship and business leadership. You're very impressive, Bob. And your chapter is called Doing Core Values. And values are just so important, aren't they? And we'll talk about those in a minute. But Bob, can you share with us what your purpose is?
Okay, so a bit like Chris, I suppose it took me a while to actually understand, do I have to have a purpose and what's it all about? I had the great opportunity, I suppose, about 5 or 6 years ago, where I was able to stop doing what I was doing and take some time. And the first thing I did is my wife and I went to Australia and New Zealand for a month. I had a son training to be a pilot down in New Zealand at the time. I had family in Australia, and I took time, and I got advice from a good colleague of mine. He says, don't say yes to the things that will come your way immediately. Take your time. And that was great advice, because it was allowing me to take time to spend time listening, as Sarah said, to myself, but also to others, and to say no to lots of opportunities that came along that would play to my experience, my ego, my sense of self, and all that kind of stuff. And I kept saying, no, I'm not going to do these things. So I didn't take any of these things. And it allowed me to kind of define what is it I want to do. So it comes down to inspiring others to be better at whatever they're doing. Often that's about leaders and leadership, but not necessarily. It can be about inspiring people to be more authentic at what they do, to learn the skills, to help them to get on. Second thing would really about be making a difference. So instead of working with lots of businesses, I spend more time working with social enterprises and charities and early stage entrepreneurs. Third thing would be about putting it back. People have helped me over many, many years. So now I spend all my time unpaid, completely unpaid, helping others. Generally about 4 days a week, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on who's asking for help. But I spend all my time helping others rather than being on the yacht that Sarah talked about, or being on the golf course or whatever, which quite frankly is something that I can do at some point way in the future. And the kind of fourth part of this is touches into the communication piece here, is there's one thing I've learned about is the power of storytelling in business and in organizations and how powerful it can be. And it's taken me a long time to learn what that means and how people can basically grab that power and use it by learning some simple, relatively simple techniques and approaches, and can use it to improve whatever they do.
Oh, amazing. And that's it. And purpose and values, when they align, it's so much more powerful, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
We've got some comments here I'm going to go to. So inspiration is so critical. Thanks, Bob. You are a legend in Aberdeen. That's from Tim.
I think that's leg ends, actually, yeah.
Oh, see the difference a space makes, hey?
Exactly, yeah.
Jamie says, tell the story to sell the story. See, there you go. Chris
Yeah.
says, Bob has given me such valuable advice in the past about being authentic in my public speaking, and always does it in such a gentle manner. He is endlessly kind. And Jamie says, Bob, love it. Well done to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Amazing. See,
Yeah.
all this, loving the comments. I love it. Bob, let's talk about your chapter, Doing Core Values. I think it's a really cool one to end this whole webinar series on, because it's such an important one.
Okay, so let me give you an example. An example starts exactly 8 years ago today. It was the 12th of April, 8 years ago in 2013, but actually it was a Friday. I'd been out of the office all week. I'd popped in late on Friday afternoon, my way home for the weekend. At the time, I was the CEO of a business with over 50,000 employees in 60 countries. A window flashed up on my screen. There was a new email from somebody called Caroline O'Brien, said, can you help? I thought, I don't know anybody called Caroline O'Brien. So I was going to ignore it. It would still be there on Monday. But I was curious, so I opened it up. And the message read, you don't know me. I'm an oncology nurse from Glasgow. Can you call me on? And she gave me a mobile phone number. And I thought, why would an oncology nurse want to talk to me? I picked up the phone, dialed the number. Hi, it's Bob Keiller. She says, oh, I've just sent you an email. I said, I know. That's why I'm calling you. How can I help you? And she explained that a member of my staff was suffering from an aggressive form of cancer. I said, oh, that's not good. And she explained that the cancer would normally be considered terminal. And I went, oh, how sad. She says, and this person's got 3 children below the age of 10 years old. I went, oh my goodness, that's devastating. But thankfully, he's taking part in a trial of a new drug, and it's going really, really well. I went, oh, that's a bit of a relief. She says, the drugs are really expensive, but your company health insurance providers agreed to fund the trial for 12 months. I said, well, that's good news then. She says, that was a year ago. I went, so what now? Exactly, what now? Could you help? And I told her, I said, look, I'm not sure. I would take it to my leadership team meeting the following Tuesday, and I would contact her on the Tuesday night. I also told her that I felt it was unlikely that we'd be able to help, and I didn't want to raise any false hopes. On the Monday morning, I was approached by my head of HR, a lady called Sue McDonald. She says, Bob, you won't know this, but one of our staff is suffering from cancer. It's been doing well on some trial treatment, now coming to an end. Manager has asked if we could provide financial support. And I said that I'd bring it to you. She then went on to explain, she says, look, I've been in this situation before. Raising false hopes can be devastating. We need to go back immediately and explain that our hands are tied. I told Sue that I knew about the situation, that I had committed to taking it to the leadership team the following day. Actually, I suggested that Sue should raise the issue under an employee feedback section on the agenda. And the following day, that's what happened. So I asked my team after Sue had set the situation, I said, so what do you think? And I could look around the table and there was a lot of people avoiding direct eye contact. And I suspected that they were actually wanting to say no, but didn't want to be the person saying it. Then one director spoke up and he says, look, we get requests like this all the time. And I said, do we? Do we really? How many requests like this have we had to deal with in the last year at this table? Because I don't remember any. Then another director chipped in and said, look, it would set an unhelpful precedent. And I confess, I didn't understand. So I asked her to explain. She said, we'd have to do the same for everyone. And I pushed back. I said, surely the principle of treating people fairly didn't mean treating them identically. We're free to consider every situation on its merits and in the context prevailing at the time. Then Duncan Skinner, our CFO, hit the nail on the head. He says, surely we need to consider this in terms of our core values. Our people core values says that we treat people fairly, We treat them openly and, when necessary, with compassion. There were heads nodding round the table. We agreed to provide financial support to our employee to continue with this very expensive drug therapy for as long as it took. We were lucky. We were in the position at the time we could make that call. But as we left the meeting room, I could see that Sue was upset. Her eyes were moist. I said, "Sue, what's wrong?" She wasn't known for being too emotional in a work context. She said, "Core values, Bob. Core values." She says, "I've been in this industry 30 years and never been part of a team that would make the decision we just did. I thought I understood what our core values meant, but I was wrong. That was my eureka moment. It took Duncan Skinner to show me what core values are." Duncan left the company in 2014. I left the company 5 years ago. And when I did so, the employee that we're talking about was doing well. Sue is still in the company and still head of HR. And unfortunately, my good friend Duncan lost his own fight against cancer last Thursday and will be sorely missed. That's what culture and values is about.
Wow, you got us, Bob. That is a powerful, powerful story of core values. Wow, the power of it. Everyone's like, boom, goosebumps. And even the timing, today, 8 years ago, the exact day, like that's bizarre. And wow, amazing. And for a decision like that to be made, to save a life, you can't put a price tag on that, really, can you? It's amazing. Sarah has said, "I've been fortunate enough to spend time with Bob, and he always offers so much value and support. He gives back more than most, for sure. Another true gentleman." There we go. And we have 3 people from Aberdeen today in the panel, and that was not on purposely done. So I think that's really amazing. Dagmar says, "I'm in a teary state. It's amazing. Bob, this was amazing." So there you go. It's amazing how the power of story can get a message across and connect with people, isn't it, Bob? Do you use that all the time?
I mean, for me, it's been one of my kind of go-to things for me is if I can capture a message in a story, and it's a true story, but I tell the story in the same way that Pixar tell the story, by making sure that I get you hooked at the start, I make sure there's enough tension and drama in the middle, and I bring in some element of the unexpected or surprise at the end. If I make sure that the story resonates with you from a point of view of making you empathize with the person or the characters in the story, and if I make sure that I give you enough detail, like the dates, the name, the place, then you'll believe it to be true. And if it is true, then you'll buy into it. If you think it's made up, you'll think it's marketing and you won't buy into it. So a lot of these things are simple little things that have been used in the world of entertainment for years. Bringing some of these things forward and putting them in a business context can help leaders and can help people in business and people doing presentations just to tell their own stories just that little bit more impactfully and that little bit more memorably. And that's one of the things I like doing is sharing some of these things with people.
It's definitely inspirational, without a doubt. Chris says, Field Marshal Slim said that morale was about 3 questions. 1, is it important? 2, is it possible? And 3, is it fair? Thank you for the reminder of that, Bob. There we go. Tim says, the power of a true story, Bob, has always been superb at that. Watch the TED Talk. What's your TED Talk called, Bob?
Well, you're going to be surprised by this, actually, Karen. It's called Doing Core Values.
Oh, that's amazing.
So in the TED Talk, which is a 12-minute TED Talk, really all I did was tell 2 stories. The first story was 4 minutes long. The second story was 7 minutes long. And then I put a 1-minute wrapper at the end to pull the message together. And both stories follow exactly the same structure, which is the same structure that Pixar use. Yeah. And the first one is about me nearly getting fired, and the second one was about me trying to bring values into a new organization and a new team. And then a little wrapper on the end to pull it all together. And the power of that was that I go back and coach the coaches of the TEDx speakers now about how to make sure that people can get their stories across authentically when they're in front of lots of people, and they might be tempted to be a bit more conventional, might be tempted to talk about data and graphs and various other things. I'm saying, no, you need to get people to show their vulnerability. You need to get people to show what's really made the difference. And we need to see the struggle. We can't have people in there saying, look at me, aren't I great? It has to be about the struggle, because we need to empathize with the person in the story. Simple things, really.
Absolutely. I done a TED talk myself recently. It was called the Own Your Story, Change Your Life. And I, you know, and you make people feel the feels, don't you, Bob, through your story, and then share your message through that. I'll be checking out your TED talk, and I'm sure you'll be getting lots of extra views now when people check on this, most definitely. Oh yeah, Jamie says, Bob, off to see the TED talk now.
Good, get those views up, yeah.
Make sure you comment, Jimmy. Philip says, I had the privilege of working under Bob's leadership. He brought our core values alive and made it a company I was proud to work for. There you go.
Good, thank you, Philip.
Tim says, I will seek your coaching if I get to do a TEDx Aberdeen this year. There you go.
Excellent,
It's
Tim.
going to happen, Tim. It's going to happen.
I look forward to that.
Oh, amazing. Well, you know, have you any top tips for us to end on, Bob, for living a purposeful life?
The question that everybody else has been asking, and given that I'm last here, it means there's nothing original for me left to say. But I was trying to think about it. You know, keep asking yourself the question why and why not. You know, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you spending the time on the stuff you're spending the time? Why are you spending time with the people that you're spending time with? And why not try something different that you've never done before, like contributing towards a book, as we've just done, and being part of a team of people that largely we've not met before, and trying something different. So always ask the question, why not? So when my wife and I signed up to do ballroom dancing in front of 400 people, having never done it before, the question wasn't why, it was why not? Because ultimately we could raise money for charity. When it comes to during lockdown, taking up art classes and learning how to paint landscapes and elephants, well, why not? You know, buying a piano and trying to learn how to play the first stuttering notes. You think, well, why not? Why would you not do these things? So keep asking yourself why and why not. And those two things will guide you on the way, I think.
I'll add to that amazing adventure. Amazing, Bob. Thank you so much. And we've ended on a high note, so thank you so much for that. We'll all be going off now into the after party, and some of us will be sneaking off to watch your TED talk. Tim says, love it, why not? There we go.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much, Bob. Chris, do you want to come down here and wind this all up for us? Amazing. I'm just in awe. I'm in awe of the whole 4 days. So you can take it off there.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure I can, to be honest, match or top any of that. I think it's probably just worthwhile reminding ourselves to why we, you know, back to that why of the book. It was designed to be inspirational, and I think there's no doubt that the people, you know, we've been listening to tonight are hugely inspirational, and so it's great to hear from them. But it's also about helping support 4 really important charities. So we have SAFA, which provides support to the families of veterans, but also serving armed forces people, which is obviously something very close to a lot of people's hearts, not least several of the authors who have been in the military at some point. And that does fantastic work. We have the Cancer Fund for Children, which is an amazing charity based out in Northern Ireland, providing respite care for children suffering with cancer or whose parents and family are suffering from cancer. You know, many of us, as Bob sadly mentioned earlier on tonight, have either had a brush with or know somebody who has sadly passed because of cancer. So I think it's even more emotional and emotive when it's within children. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to support that particular charity. SAM10, mindfulness and meditation, you know, and the health, connecting that physical and mental health together. And Jamie Watkins obviously being a strong leader through that one, because mental health is so important, as we've been hearing about. And you know, the reason again I like that charity, and I mentioned it on a few of the other webinars, is that it provides 50% of its income to other charities doing mindfulness and meditation and mental health support. So, you supporting Samten allows you to support lots of other charities as well. And then we have shelter, because unsurprisingly, I guess, circling back to my own values, I find it extraordinarily difficult to see people who are homeless. I find it extraordinarily difficult to see people who are suffering, and that I can't necessarily give the help to that I want to, and even try as I might. So shelter is a big one for me, and one of my personal, if you like, drivers. So those are all the charities. It's been a fantastic ride. I don't think any of us expected to end up being #1 best-selling authors. We were doing this because we wanted to try and make a difference. But it's amazing to see the difference that we have managed to make collectively. And I think it's brings us back to that saying, doesn't it? If you want to go far, go together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And because it's such an amazing everything book, we're raising money for charity. We've brought amazing people together into this book. Well, you have, Chris, and kudos to you. And Tim says, well done, Chris, kudos, man. Because it was your seedling of an idea, and then we had a conversation, and then it just, even the journey of the book has been inspiration and stuff. And then these past 4 days, and we have no qualms in asking you to go and buy this book, for yourself, for your friends, and because we can stand behind the quality of the material that's in this book. It's whenever this reaches the people it needs to reach, it's going to change their lives. It's going to inspire them to take positive action. It's just one of those books that is going to have that is having a positive impact on the world. So get out there, get your copy, start talking about it, and help us get it out there, because in doing so, you're helping us raise money for these 4 amazing charities. So all the karma will be going your way. None of that energy you put into it will be wasted. It'll all come back and close.
But I have to say as well, Karen, that it may be that all the people putting the content together have been great, and they've worked incredibly hard. But we could not have achieved this without you and without your team. We could not have gone anywhere close to being where we are without KMD Books. You've made my life a heck of a lot easier, and taken a huge amount off my shoulders all the time. And here you are at 2:15 in the morning in Perth, still hosting and helping us promote this book and make it what it is. And we're from panicked WhatsApp messages from me, we've sold out, what do we do, what's happening now, and just calming everything down. You just dealt with everything superbly. So we're all massively grateful to you as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I can absolutely accept compliments, so thank you. They're received with absolute gratitude. Thank you, because it helps me to do more. When I feel valued, and what my purpose is to help stories get told. And I couldn't bring this book together and share it with the world if it wasn't for all of you guys showing up and sharing your stories. So it's an absolute team effort. So thank you so much, everyone, for the love I'm seeing in the comments. And it's really easy to promote a book like this and get it together, and all of those kinds of things. And working on this project, Chris, I have to admit, you're one of the best leaders of a project I have seen, because working with 20 authors to bring together in a book is no mean feat. So kudos to you. But so we're finished for tonight. We're finished, and our 4 days are over for now. But we're going to go and we're going to have a little after party in my Zoom room. So everyone who's in the attendees, if you're a contributor, come and join us. And thank you so much to everyone who has bought the book. Thank you so much to everyone who has contributed to the energy that we're putting out there around it, and for telling people about it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye, guys.